Hello, hello, hello. Come in, everybody. Come in. Well, I'm waiting. I'm going to finish stitching this thing. So come on in. And you can chat amongst yourselves just a second. Hello, Dorothy. Hi, Purple Nana Linda. And Denise, hello. Hi, Tina. And Joan, hello, hello. I'm going to finish stitching this. I'm almost finished with it. Finished stitching around it, I mean. So, hope you guys are doing well. It is a nice warm April day today here. Super nice and warm. Getting to that point where I always try to hold off. Whoops. I always try to, talk about an awkward beginning. I always try to hold off myself turning the air conditioner on until May, and yeah, it's I'm not sure we're going to make it to that point this year, because the humidity is starting to show itself here. How are you guys doing? I hope you're doing great. I'm just finishing up a little zigzag stitch around the outside of the applique we made. Hi, Rhonda. Hi, Carol. Good to see you. Connie, hello, hello. Carol, are you a Carol that I know, or are you a new person to my channel? Sometimes people change their names, and so I never know for sure if it's somebody I actually know. So anyway, yeah, it's good to be here. It was good to take a break from packing, moving, getting rid of stuff, deciding what to keep, what not to keep. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. I've had my moments, I will tell you. I have had my moments where it's like, do I really want to do this? Am I just out of my mind? Hey, Barbara. Oh, that Carol. Carol, you keep changing your name on me, girl. Well, I'm glad you are here, Miss Carol. Although this seems like it's going slowly to do this, it's quicker than hand applique. Nothing wrong with hand applique. Just happens to be that this is what I wanted to do this time. We're almost to the end of this stitching down. I thought I would get it done earlier, but honestly I was having to dig out my room. We'll talk more about that in just a second. You do have to go slowly when you're doing this kind of applique work. When it has a detailed edge like this does, and I did that myself. I set that up. I did it all to myself. I don't have anybody to fuss at but me. But when you have this kind of ziggity-zaggity outer edge, then yeah, you do it to yourself, and so you just have to go slow, that's all. Okay, so we're done with that. So I can put this machine down. Okay, let's do that. I'll tell you what, I went to the doctor this week for a Medicare checkup. I think that's a misnomer, personally, because you go in and all they do is ask you some questions, and they want to get you on as many medications as possible, although they tell you that they don't want to do that. That's not their goal, but I'm sorry, I don't believe them. Anyway, I satisfied the requirement. You know, they listen to your heart. They say, do you mind if we take a tube of blood? No, I don't. Well, your blood pressure seems a little bit high. We think we should talk to you about blood pressure medication. I'm like, or first of all, first question is, how many medications are you on? And the answer, when I say none, they're like, they look at you like, there is something wrong with you not to be taking any medications. Anyway, it's a whole thing. Some of you know my attitude toward a lot of that stuff. It's not a good attitude. Not a good attitude. Yeah, I don't have a good attitude toward that. Anyway, hello. Dorothy's decluttering. I know, Dorothy. I bet you are. Are you making progress? I hope you are. I hope you're making great progress. I'm glad you have somebody to help you. This week I got a dumpster. That's the big news in my life. And I want to tell you something. It sure made my life a whole lot easier than have to bag all the trash up. That was getting real tiresome. Yeah. Super tiresome. So I'm very, very grateful for a dumpster. Did you ever think that anybody could be grateful for a dumpster? I am. Okay, so let's take a look at this piece. I have it done with the applique stitching. I'm just going to let you look at it from there, and then we'll zoom in. You could use a dumpster, Terry. I understand. Yeah. Ground to a halt at the minute. Oh, your helper's gone on a well-earned holiday. That's wonderful. Okay, so this is what it looks like at the moment. This is going to be the center of the flower. This was a pin that belonged to my mom. And sometimes they do, but most of the time, Barbara, I'm just like closing my eyes and chucking it in. When you have to deal with enough of it, you know, and I've been dealing with stuff since August of last year. When you get to a point, you finally go, yeah, it's not nearly as hard to chuck it in now as it was in the beginning. Not nearly as hard. Okay, so there you go. That shows you where we are so far. This could just as easily have been done with black thread with the free motion work. I decided to do it more tone on tone. There are the leaves and the stems that we did. I decided to let the stitching that was on the leaves be the detail in the leaves and not add any additional stitching. There were a couple places that I pulled out a little bit of the free motion work in here because it just looked goofy. And then there were most of the places if there was a loose thread, there's another one I missed. If there's a loose thread, I just put a little bit of tacky glue on it and then just kind of patted it into the tacky glue. I am not opposed to doing that whatsoever. So anyway, there is that piece, and I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen next, so I'm going to set it to the side. I think I may add some sequins and beads onto it or something. Thank you, Joan. You had a bonfire? Carol had a bonfire. Yeah. The dumpster has made such a huge help. Huge help. I can't even tell you how much of a help that is. Anyway, so there's the piece we've been working on, and just so you know, the size of it is 8. It's 8 by about 10 and a half. So anyway, it's going to turn into something. I'm not sure what yet, but it'll turn into something. It may turn into something to put on the wall. I don't know. Hey, Shu, good to see you. Oh, hey, Juju. Mama Juju. Is that how you say your name? Mama Juju Crafton on the back 40. That's a name. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so I have more things to show you. If you'd like to see them, hopefully they would be inspirational for you. Let's start over here. Today may not be the most exciting stream in the whole world. But on the other hand, it might be. You never know. And while I have your rapt attention, I will be streaming Monday night at 7 Eastern. And then I will be not streaming the 2nd, 5th, and 9th of May. I will be back the following, I think it's the 12th, I'll be back. Okay? So, write those down if you want to keep track of it. If you don't care to keep track of it, that's fine too. But I will be gone the 2nd. I will not be streaming the 2nd, 5th, and 9th. So, some of you know that I've had a couple of different business things going on in my life, and I thought I would show this one to you. When it was in the late 80s and early 90s, I had a big interest in, it was when machine knitting was a big deal. I started out as a hand knitter as a kid, then became a machine knitter when that was popular. Since then, I think all the machine knitting companies, machine manufacturers, I think, have all gone by the by. Anyway, I thought I would show this to you. This was, and you probably not even recognize that this is me, and that's okay. But that's me back in the days of the curly perms and the huge glasses. That's Claus Man back in the day. Way back. And so I just thought I would show you that. This is one of the machines. This was the Swiss knitting machine, which was called Passap, P-A-S-S-A-P. And this is back when we were, I don't know if we were at a show or if this was our shop. I think maybe this was our store. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. Anyway, Claus Man has on a sweater that has a big tiger on the front of it that we knitted, and because we live where the Muse tigers are the mascot at the university. And so anyway, that was back in the day. That's what I looked like when I was just a tad bit younger and a little thinner. Just a little bit. Anyway. So I found that the other day and I thought, well, you know, I don't know why all this stuff just gets, you know, it just gets chucked in things, you know, and then you find them and you go, why is that there? I have. I've had an interesting life. I really have. Okay, another thing that I showed you, some of the pieces I had hanging on my walls in my other studio at my house where I lived with Claus Man for a long time. You think I should have been born blonde? My hair was quite dark. It is no longer. So this is another one of the wall pieces that I did, and one of these is the experiment and the other one is the final thing. So this is a lily. I'm just going to zoom out so you can see the whole thing. It is a piece, it's just it's just like a picture you would hang on the wall. And it's called thread painting. And so that's what this is. This is thread painting. All of this, you can't see the background. because it is so densely stitched. And that's done on silk. I think actually the flower, the blooms themselves, I think I did on a set. This is a long time ago. I did these, I believe, on a separate piece of silk or something, and then appliqued them, kind of like what I did with the with this piece. So I made the applique separate, except this is all done with thread. Hi, Gray. And then once I put it on, I did the thread painted the leaves, and then I put the blooms on top, I think is what I did, but it's been a long time. Anyway, this is silk dupioni on the background, and it's all quilted by machine using a walking foot. And you can see how the quilting was done. This is also silk dupioni on the back. This was my test piece to work out the technique. So this was a different kind of applique. You can see that if I line it up at the bottom on a line, you can see how out of square it is. I don't know why. I guess because I really didn't pay any attention. Anyway, once this one was done, and I did the whole thing, then I did this one, which is actually, the proportions were better, the color was better, and I think it's even a little more square. See, I even got it to be more square this time. Same process though. Colors of thread were different, and the leaves were the same, but the colors of thread were a little different in the blooms, and the quilting style is different than the other one. Again, done on silk dupioni and bound with silk dupioni, backed with muslin, because there's no point in wasting that much silk on the back of something, in my opinion, which is what I did. So there is that piece. So this is, I'm going to zoom in real tight so you can look at it. So you can see all of the millions, hundreds of stitches to create the flowers and to do the shading. All of those are different, probably rayon threads, but they could have been cotton threads. I don't remember for sure. And then I appliqued it on, after the applique was done, the flowers were done, I appliqued it to the background using that free motion zigzag stitch so that it kind of blended it into the background. The leaves are just a straight stitch using different colors of greens and yellows and dark peaches and so forth. Anyway, so that's often how I work, which is do one as a practice and then do one as the final. And that's the reason, folks, I end up overwhelmed with projects. Yeah. That's why I end up with so much stuff. All right, I used to belong to a group, and in that group, it was an art group, and in that group, we met once a month, and we did different kinds of fabric things. Most of it was along the lines of art quilting. The group was called Artrageous. And so I don't remember we usually studied either a book or some quilt artist's technique is usually what we did. And so this one, we were supposed to be inspired by something else, or something or someone else. And back in those days, this was in the early 2000s, so probably 25 years ago. Back at that time, I'm just going to show you the whole process here, because I'd forgotten I'd even done this one. Hi, Joni. I'd forgotten I even had done this piece. So I'll show it to you. But I'll show you all the steps and how I got there, okay? back in the day, I didn't have a really grand imagination for abstract kinds of things, and that was sort of what this was based on. Some of the people in the class, or the group, there were 12 of us, 12 or 13 of us that worked on once a month, worked together in whatever the creative thing was that we were doing. And some of them in the group had very specific things that they liked to do. Like one person liked to do flowers. Another person liked to do sea life. And I didn't have anything that I particularly was that enamored with. Back at that point in time, it was probably 2005-ish. So probably 20 years ago, yeah. I was not in a real great space, and so my imagination and everything else was kind of wonky. So I packed up a bunch of stuff and I went to the group that day. We always met on Saturdays, and I went to the group that day, and I had no idea what I was going to do. And they always want to know, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I'm always like, I don't know. So I pulled a piece of my pack of gum out of my purse. And I have no idea what kind of gum it was. Somebody here may know. Anyway, I unwrapped the piece of gum and I looked at the gum wrapper. And the gum wrapper I went, okay, that'll work. So the gum wrapper, which is right here, became the inspiration for what I started on and worked on for a while. I'm not sure that I really am in love with it, even though I found it and looked at it during this process of excavation. I'm not sure I'm in love with the piece, but I don't dislike it either. So I thought, yeah, I'll show it to you. So there's the gum wrapper. So you see the design, it has circles, and I thought, okay, I'm going to take that and run with it. And so I started doing some sketching with just on a piece of tracing paper. So I did some sketching. We broke the background. Part of this was an exploration in, what was that called? Some kind of applique, but it was a different style of applique. Maybe I can tell you here. Hold on a second. Maybe it's on here. Let me look at my instruction, my handout for a second, and maybe I can tell you what we were exploring. We were designing a quilt. It's based on the work of Carol Breyer Fallert. That's what it is. Okay, so it's based very loosely on her style of how she makes. Nobody could ever mimic her successfully, but that's kind of the way of where the inspiration came from. So this is what I ended up with. I drew the circle shapes based on the gum wrapper. Okay, based on this. I drew this. I guess I had decided I wanted it to be a square quilt. I'm not sure, because that's what it ended up to be. And then I had to bisect the background. And then here is the, we traced it on Mylar. And then I drew it on just typing paper, copy paper, and then spent some time coloring it in different ways to see what kinds of colors I liked. And so some of this is crayon and some of this is marker. And, most of the time during that time in my life, I would just be kind of lost and not really know what I was doing. And so I would just sort of hope that I would get inspiration from the group. And I don't even know why they let me in the group back then, because I was not nearly as much of a quilter as they were, as the other people in the group. So then what we did is we made this little masking device. So this was just a piece of cardstock, and that way I could use that, and it would help to block out. You could take a piece of paper and put over here, but it would kind of block out some of these other sections so I could get a feel for what did I like. And I was trying very much to do something that was out of the ordinary and not my usual, whatever it was that was usual for me back then, which I don't even remember what that was. So then it began the process of translating it into fabric. And then we had to do this whole, like this is just such a process, you guys. It was such a process. So I blew it up. I'll show you my paper map. Because you had to have a map, like make the whole thing bigger. And you had to do it upside down and backwards and all this stuff, which I am terrible at. Absolutely terrible at. But we had to do this, make the map, so you had to blow it up. So I enlarged it, okay? And then I had all of these hand dyed fabrics. Some of them I had done, and some of them I had purchased from a friend, one of the other members of the quilt group, because she was a great, fabulous hand dyer, and she did all these wonderful fabrics. And so I had all those to work with. Okay, so I made my map, I put my fabrics on, and my color scheme was based upon the fabrics I had. Are you guys still here? I'm just checking. Because but the chat went radically quiet. Okay, looks like you're here. So then we started learning the process. Now, if I were to do this process again, because you end up with all of these pieces, these are all freezer paper, the patterns. If I were to do this again, I would have to go back and relearn this whole thing. I would have to relearn the entire system because it's been so long ago. This was, I don't know. I don't even know what year it was. Okay? All right, so I'm going to show you. There's a lot of work in this for not knowing what I'm going to do with it. Let me see if I don't even know if I did it. Okay, I think this is the right way around. All right, let's see. This hasn't been ironed, so. And I can't get the whole thing on the screen, but you'll be able to see quite a bit of it anyway. Okay, so here's the top. Kind of imagine that nothing else is on the table because it's a big enough piece that it's hard for me to get it here for you to see. But remember where this started with a gum wrapper out of desperation. That was my inspiration out of desperation. The only piece in here that I dyed myself was this one and this one. Everything else was hand dyed by a friend of mine. So the circle bits I did, I believe, separately. That's what it looks like I did. And this one I ended up not needing, and so that's why I have this extra one just on this stabilizer. I didn't even finish stitching around it. I explored different kinds of threads, different colors of threads. I used the applique pieces were blacks and whites with different colorful threads that kind of picked up the background. And somehow in here you can see shading. I don't remember what I shaded that with, but it must have been, it was either a textile paint or something. So you get all of this additional movement based on adding the whatever I used. I do remember taking a piece of paper and cutting a shape and then laying that down, and then maybe it was a stencil brush that I used in stencil paint. I can't remember. Anyway, once the background was done enough that I liked it, or the center part, Rhonda is trying to make sense out of things. Then I created little tiny baby piping. So this has got a itsy tiny little cord in here. Whoops, wrong way, Barb. And this is using, whoops, sorry, that was a little ridiculous. Let's go this way. So this is using a little bitty tiny cord to create piping with bias strips. And so that was added in there because I felt like it needed something to frame it, to separate it from the fabrics that I used to frame the piece, because I used two different fabrics. So this is one side and this is another side, moving kind of from the cool-ish over to the kind of warmish side. So exploring cool and warm. Anyway, will I ever get this completed? I have no earthly idea, but I thought I would show it to you nonetheless. I don't even know why I stopped. Probably because I had many hours in it and I was tired, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. But it was kind of fun to stumble onto it and go, how in the world did I do that? Because all of those seams in that create this background, all of these seams right here, those are all those curves are pieced on the machine. Yeah. Anyway, those of you that are quilters will know how crazy that undertaking was. Anyway, I thought I would show that to you because I thought you might get a charge out of that one, the piece that I found. The collage doesn't match the challenge. I'm not sure I understand, Gray. You love that? You love it, Dorothy? Hey, Warner's Grin, Jessica. Good to see you. Okay, so there's that one. And then, excuse me, I'm going to show you this piece because I think I'm going to take it apart. I'm not sure yet, but I think I may take it apart. Because, you know, every once in a while you go, okay, I'm over that. I'm ready to do something different. And so I think I'm going to do that with this. I think I'm going to take it apart. Anyway, I'm going to show it to you now. So this is a piece I had hanging in the other studio. I've had it hanging there for a long time. It is another one of the, it was kind of inspired through the same group that I was going to, because what we did was the background. We explored this background weaving technique. Oh, Gray is doing collage. Got you. Thanks, Rhonda. I just missed. Hi, Angela. All right, I'm gonna have to get a drink of water, you guys. Hang on just a second. So this was about self-exploration kind of thing, and there's things I like about it and there's things I don't like about it, and so I think I'm gonna take it apart. I love the background, So I think I'm going to take it apart, and I'll see. It depends. I think these might be, some of these are glued on. I don't know. The issue with this piece is that these are polymer clay pieces that I created, and I'm no polymer clay expert, and so when I put them on and stitched them on, some of them broke. I think only one of them broke, but they are all pretty vulnerable, and so the piece either has to hang on the wall, or I can't fold it up, so it's got to hang someplace. I can't even roll it up, so it's a pain in the neck. Anyway, I'll give you a tour through it. The fabric I used was an ombre polka dot, so not only was the fabric ombre, but so were the polka dot patterns. So they were very heavy at the two ends of the fabric and very light in the middle. The pink was that way, and so was the yellow. So the weaving technique that we did, kind of a wonky weaving technique, which I totally enjoyed, and then I zigzag stitched that to keep it together, and then I added little seed beads, which you can't even see. If I was going to put a bead on, why didn't I put a bead that you could see? I don't know the answer to that. And so, but there are seed beads at some of the intersections. These are made of polymer clay and then stamped, and I stamped them with, the polymer clay was black. Stamped it just using various little alphabets that I had on hand. Poked holes in them, baked them, and then rubbed them with rub and buff, I think, a silver rub and buff. So these were all the things, the creative things that I was interested in at the time. This is a piece of hand-dyed fabric that I drew the face on and painted her, or did her with pens and pencils. And her hair is a purple linen, I think. And then these little things are silver charms that I put on here, which have all successfully tarnished. And the earrings were silver charms. Everything is quite tarnished. It's been hanging up for years in my other studio. And then I created the noodly, the hanging is created with threads and fibers and beads and wire. So I created that noodly thing to make the hanging out of. The same fibers, but not as many. I created a piping in here. And that became the piping that helped to frame out the border around it. So in keeping with the whole kind of wonky weaving, then I did a wonky shape around the edge also. Well, it is definitely springtime here, and everything is blooming out, that is for sure. This was a hand-dyed fabric on the back, and then I added just little curtain rings, and then this hangs using a dowel rod that just slips through the rings, and then I put a couple little nails in the, it's not heavy, a couple little nails in the wall, and then this hangs on that. But my favorite part of this was this. I love this wired fiber noodly thing. The spiral here is the same as that, and this was all done on printer fabric. So I had to figure out how to do a spiral in the computer and get the spacing right so I could cut the words and things apart to go around in a spiral. This was back when I was wrestling to the ground the concept of art versus craft. Have any of you had that discussion with anybody? where somebody will ask you, are you an artist or are you a crafter? And what do you say to that? It's a good question. It is one that I find extremely annoying, and one that I don't want to have to answer. I hate that discussion because it depends on how you define artist or crafter. Do you define artist as someone who has a degree? Do you define someone who has a degree as an artist if they have a 6-year degree or a 4-year degree? Do you define a crafter as someone who buys kits and assembles kits, or as someone who throws pots on a wheel, or who makes jewelry with a torch or wire? Is that a crafter? Is that an artist? You know, there are some that it's been a discussion, a sticking point for me for a long time. So this was when I was wrestling this bear. And so this says, I allow myself to be endlessly creative. I allow myself to be an artist. The great creative universe flows through everything. I allow the great creative universe to flow through me. I am endlessly creative. I am an artist. So yeah, that was my wrestling that whole thing of, am I an artist or am I a crafter? And Dorothy, I agree with you, because in the end, that's pretty much the place I get to and go, well, who the hell cares? Anyway, that's my exploration for that. Yeah. Also, when I was looking at many things, and I'm about 3/4 of the way done emptying my studio at the other house, and so I had this sticking up on the wall, and I thought I would show this to you. Many of you, I'm sure, remember seeing this. This was back years ago. I don't know that it's dated, but years ago, Dee Dee Willingham did this. This is actually a color copy of the image that she did. This is Chance, one of the sponsors, and she painted him and then did her collage and all of her wonderful stuff around it. But I feel so honored to have this, especially now that we don't have him anymore. But anyway, I found that and I thought I'll just show that to you. But isn't that neat? Yeah. So that was really special it was hanging up on my wall, and so I got that and brought that with me. I will add it to all my good stuff. All right. And sorry about my voice. I have not had any problems with my voice until I started talking to you guys. So I found a whole bunch more stuff that I did, fiber art stuff or fiber craft stuff. Call it what you like. And I thought, well, we'll look through this. We'll look through all these because these all have things that are in common. I know, isn't it sweet to see him? And Dee Dee captures the likeness of an animal so well, and that was so neat that she did that. So this whole book that I'm going to show you, I have many of these. A lot of these I have gone through as I've been moving and taking only the most important pieces and parts out of the notebooks and keeping them, because it's just it's time to do that, and I don't have as much room in the space where I am. So it's time to, consider what am I still interested in, what's really valuable to me. But excuse me. This is one of the things that's really important to me, so I've kept it. And I have a whole book about postcards, and fabric postcards in particular. Not all of them are fabric, but a lot of them are. And I collect ideas all the time. Color inspiration, technique inspirations. And so this is one that, I'm constantly looking for ways to just challenge myself. And so you've seen me do the fabric collage type stuff many times. That's exactly what this is. This was bigger pieces of fabric for the collage in the background. And for the green of the leaves, it was a little bit smaller pieces of fabric that I used for the collage, fabric collage for the leaves and the stem. And then the yellows on this were all just individual cuttings, petals cut from different yellows, oranges, tans, and so forth. So if you do small pieces, if you're going to do small pieces of art, then you need to do smaller pieces of fabric in the collage. And so that's that. And playing with stitch, crazy stitch patterns. And then also experimenting with writing, free motion writing on the sewing machine. And this was created in 2015 on Ustream. I got a thing the other day from a notice from YouTube that congratulations that I had been on YouTube for 11 years. It was my 11-year anniversary on YouTube, and I had been doing streaming for a long time before that on Ustream, and I'm like, holy cow, I knew I'd been doing this a while, but I didn't know how long. A long time. Yeah, a long time. Okay, so let me just stick this postcard thing back in here. So I thought maybe you would get some ideas if we look through this. The other question you get, if it's not about, are you an artist or a crafter? The other question that you get is, well, what are you going to do with all this stuff? And it's a good question. It is a good question. I find it pointless because who cares? I enjoy it, so who cares, right? Okay, on the other side of this notebook that I'm wrestling to try and get it out for you, this was another postcard that I did. And this is an Edsel. That's an Edsel. Ford Edsel. Edsel Ford, I don't know. Anyway, it's an Edsel. My son had an Edsel. It was black, and but if you do, this is a machine embroidery that I did, the Edsel. So I did that on my embroidery machine. I couldn't do it in black because if I did, you wouldn't see all the pieces and parts of the embroidery. So I just stitched it out, and then cut it out and made an applique out of it. Yeah, that's nice. What's it for? So this had a lot of junk on it. This turned out to be one that was, it was not exactly a successful postcard, but it's an example of some things, some techniques. Like this has got Angelina fibers that I melted together and made into that's a very fibrous material. Looks like Easter grass, fine Easter grass, and you can melt it and turn it into sheets, and you can cut it up and make stuff out of it. A lot of this is hand painted fabric, some crystals, buttons, and some threads incorporated in. Anyway, It's not necessarily one of my proudest things that I've ever done, but it reminds me of the Edsel that my son had, that when he took off to North Carolina to work on a movie set, he left in his 59 Edsel. And I'm like, whoa, I hope he gets back home. And he did. This was another example of a postcard, but I did not do this one. Someone else did this one and gave it to me as a sample. And I'm going to experiment with this idea at some point. This is a trapunto type of technique, so it has some thickness, but it's knit, so it's from a t-shirt or something. I don't know whether you can see the dimension. You can kind of see it. Anyway, I really like that idea, and so it lives in the cover of this notebook. And I really like these notebooks that have these clear plastic sleeves on them, covers on them, because then you've got places to stick things. So a lot of this is, some of these are my notes, and other things are just some of the places that I've gotten inspiration through the years. These were all machine embroidery type things, or machine, the built-in machine stitches, and just experimenting and seeing what they would do. So there, a lot of these were those things, and just ideas that I could use for different kinds of things for postcards. So if you don't keep reference material like this, I encourage you, if you've never done this, I encourage you to do it. Make a notebook. These all happen to be in plastic sleeves, because sometimes I go through phases where I want everything all nicely kept in a notebook. Then I'll go through and years later I'll rip it all out and keep only the things that I want to keep. So, but it's pretty interesting to see different people's takes on how to make postcards. This one includes a bottle of wine. Always a good choice. I just find them so interesting to see. This is done on a felting machine, a lot of that. And thread paintings. It's good to be inspired, right? So that is my book of inspiration. And then from that, I'll just kind of take off in my own direction. So I'll show you some of those. So here's a whole pack of postcards of different kinds. Postcards are easy to make. You can make big sheets of your artwork and then cut it down, and then you have lots of things to either send directly through the mail or put in an envelope or use as a gift tag for presents or what have you. This is an example of, this was all one sheet. Okay, this was all one sheet of art. I'm just going to line them up like this. So that's what all of this is. So it was one big piece of mixed media paper, probably using prompts from something and then cut it up into the postcard size. And then in this case, because it's paper, then I used, and it's not very heavy, I used a piece of colorful cardstock. And you can see the difference that the color of the card, of the matting that you put behind it, how it affects the way that the surface appears. So that's another thing that's really fun about postcards, because you can do some experimenting with that. And then I stitched those together, and I never did go back and finish off the threads. So that has yet to be done. Let's see, this one is painted fabric. So this is painted fabric, and it has, I don't know what, probably some kind of paint, sparkly paint up there. A lot of doodly stitching with a word added, or a phrase. Here's one that's in process, another painted fabric, not finished. This one looks like it might have been a roll-off print or a ghost print from the jelly plate. This one is jelly plate. Hi, Signa. This one is jelly plate. This one is probably part of this piece. I really enjoy experimenting with, I think this might have been a paint that I'd gotten that I was playing around with, but this has a stencil, and I don't know, I'm not sure what I did. Anyway, this is jelly plate. This is a real ugly jelly plate print, but put a focal image on it of some kind, and it's salvageable. Not necessarily the best work I ever did. Neither is this one, but again, I can put a focal image on there and it wouldn't be too bad. But I almost always have some sort of bunch of postcard things in progress. So I have a bunch of the backings stamped and ready to go, and a bunch of the fronts, some good, some not, some that I'm not super happy with. Some of you may have been around when we did these. Yeah, these are all jelly print. That was when I was printing on pre-printed fabric that I didn't like, and I wanted to see what it would do, and then some on muslin. So these are all the sizes, postcard sizes, that can be made into postcards, or they could be reshaped and cut into tags and that sort of thing, or made into greeting cards. Okay, this one is a different deal, and this was a stencil that I used some kind of stencil cream or something, and then I was free motion stitching around the stencil just to see if I could do that. And so this was just an experiment. This all was an experiment from the same piece of fabric that I never finished making into cards, but nonetheless, you know, most of it's salvageable to do something with if I decide to. You cut a bunch of squares for your mixed media class. Yeah, you just, you know, it's just one of those things you can do, right? You just have stuff ready, and then when you don't have a lot of time, you can, and you have a few minutes, you can always come back to work on some small thing for a little bit. Here's some more. These are done. Most of this grouping is from the embellisher, felting machine, and so this was done on a piece of felt. This is all fiber, loose fiber like rovings, whoops, that was a little far, like wool rovings, and then I felted those onto a background, and then I cut and added another piece of felt, wool felt, as the backing, and stitched it, zigzag stitched the top onto the back. That way you end up getting the matting from the black. It looks nicer, and it gives it a little body. This was one, same technique. This was experimenting with some actual goat hair. I think it was goat. It was goat or sheep. The curls and things that came from the fleeces that I had. Again, it's okay. It wasn't my best work, but I often keep the things that I'm not so happy with. This is roving. Once the background was completed, this is yarn or roving that I felted on top of it to give it a different feel. Same thing. Roving, different kinds of battings and rovings and fibers felted with the embellisher machine, and then free motion stitched over. I love to combine free motion stitch with all of that. And here it is done. This is more of that fiber, whatever this was, probably a sheep fleece that I had. I had a whole bunch of those, and I die cut some of the backgrounds into these shapes and free motion stitch them down. I use the embellisher to add yarns from the same piece of background. Okay, these same piece of background here. Here's another one. Lots of free motion stitching. This is one of my favorite threads to do free motion stitching with, is a neon thread. It just really sparks up any kind of felting. Really stands out, and you get to see the designs. This has little shape buttons, a die cut butterfly from some of the fabric. The thing that's kind of fun about cutting them from the same fabric, a different section of the same fabric, is that it kind of blends into the background, but it's there, but you have the dimension from it, but they don't glare, they don't stick out and say I'm here. This one had a lot of crystals that I added to it, and here's another one also. This is one of the neon threads. I have the neon threads in pink, orange, yellow, and a neon blue, and I really love to use those in stitching projects. And then these are, you can also do ATCs the same way. Do a big, and you can do them wherever you want to put the focal point, up or down or sideways. Would help if you could see it. The disadvantage of zooming in too far so you can see is that you got to stay on camera. And then this one was just an oddball that I had left, and so I went ahead and just made it into this little thing, which could be whatever. But the neon threads, that's what I did with all these. This is the pink, the neon pink. This is the yellow. The orange is here, and I don't think I used the blue on any of these. Anyway, they're all done the same way. These are all done with the embellisher, or needle felting machine, they're called. Thanks, Joan. And I have one more bag of things to show you. And then I've been chucking things in a basket of to hand embroider, slow stitch stuff. I have this giant basket. This stuff is way too much for this basket, and so I thought you might enjoy helping me sort it. I love what the needle felting machine does. I absolutely love it. Oh, I lied. I have 2 bags. I love what the needle felting machine does because you can't reproduce it. You could never copy it or reproduce the effect that you get with, even if you use the same materials and you put them on the same color background, they're going to come out different always. So everything I showed you on that is done with rovings or loose curls from fleeces and that kind of thing. This is also using the needle felting machine or an embellisher, depending on what brand you're working with. And this is using, instead of rovings and wool, this is using synthetics and silks, but very fine, very thin. It's the kind of fabric that stick to your hands, you know, the kind that you go, ugh, you know, if your hands are rough at all, that it sticks to your fingers and it's just yuck. Or that it's like water. You don't want to sew with it because it's like sewing with water. You know, it's like chiffon overlays and it's that kind of stuff. But it works so well with a needle felting machine or an embellisher. And you can actually use it as paint. And I've created a number of frameable pieces of art that I have on walls. I've sold a couple. Sold one that was a lighthouse. Normally what I do is create the background, and then whatever the image is, I do as a silhouette. Oh, I was just reading the chat just a second. So anyway, it's very interesting to see and to use woven fabrics as opposed to the rovings and the felts, the wools. They have a very different look about them. And so again, most of the time I do a big piece and then I cut it down. So this is an example of cutting it into the size of a postcard. It came from this bigger piece. And I had already done all of the machine doodle stitching on it, free motion stuff, doodle stitching using sparkly threads, metallics and sparkly threads. Cut it down, and then it can be made into a postcard. And your fabric for your backgrounds on your postcards, if you have these white on white backgrounds like this, but they're too bright, then just turn them over. And one of my friends who is a quilter is famous for saying, use the other side, you paid for both. I'm like, yeah, good point. Here's another one. And this just has, I put a bird on it. If you can't figure out what to put on it, put a bird on it. This is one of those little, I think this was a Tim Holtz embellishment, although I'm not sure. And then here's another one, and this is The Journey Awakens the Soul. I know that's a Tim Holtz thing. And these fabric types of things, they may cost you more than a regular postcard, but these kinds of things can go through the mail. Now you got to accept the fact that, you know, they could get a little scuffed up in the mail, but they're kind of fun to send things like that, because I have personally tested that a number of times. And if you're worried about it, put it in an envelope and send it that way. Okay? If you have any of the fabric left over from these kinds of sheets like this that you make, you can always turn them into embellishments or fodder for your journals or for covers of journals. These are die cut hearts. The fiber art part is a die cut heart that I had several, I don't know where I got the heart. I don't know if it's a Tim Holtz or a Sizzix die or what. But anyway, I die cut those hearts and then I attached them to black, stitched around them. Then I hand cut the black around the outside. So that's a free hand cut with the black. That's not just the inside was the die cut. Okay, so there's that. So you can use the embellisher or the needle felting machine, and you can do it with woven fabric or you can do it with felt. This is duck cloth. That was the base for that, was duck cloth. The base for the others were felt. And then this is some other pieces of collage fabrics that we've done together. These are in various stages of finished, and some hand painted fabrics and so forth. You can always make postcards using your hand painted fabrics. This one is just working. Sometimes I like to challenge myself I give myself a challenge with, okay, use your scraps, but go from dark to light, go in rainbow order, do just cool colors, just warm colors, do cool to warm or whatever. So this was an example of just using diagonal striping, and this I was going to use, I think, on a cover of a journal, which I never did do, but you know, it could still happen. Same idea. These are all woven fabrics, but these were all scraps from what was in my scrap box, which I have cut down to about a quarter of what I had. This is all cool colors. I happen to really love this piece. It is very heavily stitched, very heavily stitched. Look at all that. That's a lot of stitching. This was all red and black, so that was another assignment I gave myself, red and black. This one was, somebody gave me this color combination. I think it was turquoise, red, and black, I think. And I love the way that those colors turned out. I think that was especially effective. That might have been Barbara Clark that gave me that idea. I can't remember for sure. This one, I don't remember. Don't remember what if there was a color combination somebody gave me. Hey, Cynthia. Sister. The oddly shaped ones, like, you mean like this or this? Is that what you mean? Would I frame? Is that what you mean? I'm not sure. I just make these as pieces of, I just make them and have them available as when I need some of my own stuff, if that's what you mean. Yeah. So I just make sheets like this, and then I'll do something else with them, use them for other purposes. And then this one, again, everything I've shown you, all of this, all 100% of this is from my scrap box. And I didn't even dent the scrap box. Didn't even put a dent in it. Anyway, those are, I like having my own stuff, my own things to use, and so that's pretty much why I do that. I'll show you these other hand-painted things. Although I do have one thing in here that is not hand-painted. This is a napkin. So this was a napkin that I fused onto a stabilizer. And so whatever I did with this, I stitched it. The piece that I used, I actually stitched and did free motion stitching on, but it was to use for something else. These are all just little pieces, little bits and pieces of hand painted fabrics. These can all be used in other collages or to build other things. If you take the time to make your own stuff, make your own stash of fabrics and papers, then that's not worth much of anything. But if you do that, then you have things ready to go when you want to make something and you don't want to use commercial fabrics. Then you have your own stuff ready to go. Yeah, this was that real ugly jelly printed thing, but it's still usable. If you cut it up, it's like Dina Wakley talks about puke on a page. If you cut it up, it always looks good. Cut it small enough. This was jelly plate printed on that fabric that was pre-printed, and I loved how it worked once there was jelly plate printing, how that you could still see some of the figures, the commercial figures in the background, and yet turned it into my own fabric, because nobody'd ever really know that that was a piece of commercially printed fabric. And this one I actually really, really like. I like this one a lot. That one I like enough that I could actually do something with, like I need art to go on the wall. I don't, but that one I like enough that I almost could do that. Here's another one. This one I like really well too. This is the ugly one. We saw a postcard of this a little bit ago. But it still has possibilities. And then this one was real ugly, and so then I went over and painted over it, and I liked it much better after I painted over it. So there's those. And then this is Silk Fusion. So this is using silk fibers and turning it into a paper-like substance that can be used for, and this has Angelina fibers. This is what I was talking about earlier, this wispy stuff that's kind of like Easter grass. Those are Angelina fibers, and they have to be trapped or stitched or encased somehow, because they don't necessarily want to stick to the surface of anything. If you have a fusible web down here, they'll stick to a fusible web, or if they're caught in a medium of some kind, they'll stick. But other than that, you have to do something to get them to hold together. Otherwise, they just come off the surface. Okay, now I think that was all the things I was going to show you. Any of you have questions? Yep, you can turn the ugly things into, make your own tapes or your own borders of things. Absolutely. So no questions of any of that? Sure. I hope that's a little bit inspiring for you, maybe for getting some ideas of things you could do. And so if you want to stick around, you're welcome. This basket right here, this basket is the basket that was once, it was well organized at one point, and now it's just, I've been just chucking things into it. I thought, we'll go through it together. How about that? And let's see if we can organize it. What do you say? Okay, here we go. Let's see what happens here. I'm going to take some of this and set it off to the side, and then we'll start seeing what we can see in here. All right, let's go through this stuff first. Both of these are dolls from the Mining Your Muse class. And I decided that what I was going to do with these are along the line of the soul support dolls that I do. And I decided what I was going to do with these is embroider on them. And so I pulled them off my wall. They've been hanging on the wall for ages. Pulled them off the wall, and so I'm going to slow stitch on top of them, which I think will be a very fun idea to do because they are entirely hand done. They're made by hand, stuffed by hand. This face is a stitched head. It's called a tab head. It's not sculpted, other than the sides of her mouth and the edges. The inner edges of her eyes. There's some stitches there. Her hair is fibers and flowers, and she has bells on. She has a little doodad at the bottom. Some of it is new charms, and like this is a fishing lure, but that is well used with a new charm and then part of a bracelet and a clock hand. And so this one is much plainer. She just has a little charm necklace. Her little doodad at the bottom has a key, one of those fishing things, a bell, and a charm. What are these called? I forgot what they're called. Anyway, her hair is all done with yarn and fibers. She has a braid. But I think that they have good possibilities for adding some things onto the surface. This isn't a lure, but it's it's part of the thing that flips around in the water and attracts fish. What's the name of it called? No, it's not a fly. I forgot what it's called. It'll come to me in a little bit, maybe. And in this mess, I have here people give me stuff all the time. When people know that you do kind of eclectic kinds of things, there's always somebody willing to give you stuff. And I always say, okay, yes, sure. I don't say it quite as much now, but at one point, one of my, she was actually someone I met in a grief support group. She was from Thailand, and she asked me, she said she had a lot of things from her country, and she wanted to know if I wanted them, and she gave me a world of these things. And so I'm going to show them to you because I really had never looked at them, but they are absolutely stunning pieces. So I'm going to show them to you because I think you'll enjoy them. It's this whole little bag of these appliques. These are all done with, it's either a cotton or a linen. I think it's a linen. And all the edges are turned. They are, I don't know if they're glued together or what, but they are absolutely stunning little pieces of art in their own right. And I don't have any idea what this was for, although I kind of imagine, because there's so many of them that are the same, I imagine that this was going to be a part of a garment. She was a phenomenal seamstress, absolutely phenomenal seamstress. And so I imagine this was going to be a part of a garment. And she has since moved away, or moved back to Thailand, and she left me in charge of all of these wonderful little applique pieces that I imagine she created, although I don't know for sure. And then this one is different. So there's this one. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No. Okay, let's see. No, they're different. So there's 2, 1, 2, 3. There's 3 of these. I'm going to have to put them in the same direction so I can tell for sure. There's 4 of those. Okay, and then we have this one. And there are 4 of those. And then there's this one. This is bigger. And there are 4 of those. Okay? Now, if you don't like pink, you're in deep trouble here. Hi, Catherine. 11 years. And you haven't missed any of my lives? Oh my goodness, Catherine. You need to... No, it's a good that you won the drawing the other day. It is good you won the drawing. You deserve it. Anybody that's put up with me that long deserves it. And remember, I told you guys a little bit earlier that I will be streaming on Monday night, this coming Monday night, and then I will be not streaming May 2nd, 5th, or 9th. These are just stunning. But I think that they could be, you know, there could be something interesting done with adding some little bits and pieces to one of the dolls. I'm never going to put them on a garment, so I think that it could be interesting to do something with that. That's what I was thinking about. But those are only the big appliques, and then there are these sweet little things. I can't even imagine preparing all of these, honestly. Cannot. I'm sure this was supposed to be for some purpose. I don't know what. Then there are these little appliques. But aren't these amazing? I mean, can you imagine doing these? I cannot. I'm assuming that the edges have been turned using starch or something, but I mean, they're just impeccably done. But she was that kind of sewer. It was amazing. And there's all these little individual flowers. So there are 4 of those, and then there's 6 of these, and then a lot of little leaves. Now, I could hoard these forever, which is, I've had them for 2 or 3 years already, or I could just decide to use them, and I have decided I should use them. So there, so there's 2, 4, 6, 8. There's 10 leaves. So this was all in this one little bag marked Botanica, the Wichita Gardens. I have no idea. I have no idea. Anyway, aren't they stunning? I mean, really. Okay, so those need to go into, actually they should go into something else, but I don't have anything else to put them in at the moment, so they're gonna live back in the little bag they came out of for the moment. They're so delicate and they're so beautiful. I hope you guys enjoy seeing stuff like this because I find it fascinating. I love looking at things that other people have done. I mean, you can't get a machine to create those kinds of things. That has to be done by hand. I can't imagine how much time was involved in that. Anyway, so one of these girls, probably this one, is going to get a makeover. This one's going to get a makeover too, but I think I'm going to pull off the words, and nothing is safe to me. If I've done something and I decide that I want to redo it, I'll just take it apart and redo it. And here are some little scroll, you know, what do you call these things? Snippet roll type things. By Dorothy. So these are just little snippet roll things. Using machine stitches, built-in machine stitches, scraps, and so pieces and parts of this can be pulled off, taken apart, and used again either on a slow stitch project or a basis for a different new slow stitch thing. I could embellish something I already have, or use it as is, you know, take a section of it and use that as a focal point on a postcard or whatever. But this was a lot of fun to do. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. So I have those. I'm gonna keep those together. And then I found embroideries. I have a quilt started somewhere. Those of you that remember Laurel Birch, she was a prolific artist, and her art was always very colorful. She did a lot of cats and a lot of dogs and all different kinds of animals and all different kinds of things. This is one of her designs. They took her design. She is no longer living, but they took her designs and someone digitized them, and so this, I had stitched this out for whatever reason, I don't know, and so I think I'm going to probably either stitch on this, do slow stitching on this. I thought that might be kind of fun to do. In fact, that might be what I do, and turn it into a little cushion or a little pin cushion. I think it would be an adorable pin cushion. Do you? Hi, Kathy. Yeah. Anyway, I think that might turn into a slow stitching project. Just because I have it stitched up in a certain way doesn't mean it has to live that way. So those are things that can be remodeled. This piece I have envisioned for these to make a series of these. Yeah, will I live long enough to make them into a series? I don't know. Who knows? But these are Gyotaku prints, fish prints. So the prints are separate from the background, and I have stitched those on, and then I'm in the process of just doing big stitches. You see the stitches, just to give it the kind of the feeling of water. And I would love to have a series of these to go. We have a background here in the house that I think that the fish prints could be really nice to go on, but I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Anyway, I had a lot of fun getting this far, and so it lives in my basket because this is something that I do go back to. So we're going to set that over here because that is a current project. Let's see what's in here. I love the fish too. I really do. They were printed, stamped. Let's see. Stamped is not the right word. Stamp might be the word. Using rubber fish molds. Oh, this is empty. Okay. So this is just a little sewing roll that is empty at the moment. So we're gonna leave it empty at the moment. And then when I need it, I'm gonna have someplace to put stuff, right? Okay. I love having little soft fabric things that have places you can put stuff. Zipper pouches and things like that. Here we have some, yeah, this is where I get in trouble because I end up with all these little patterns and, you know, not an efficient way to keep them. But anyway, here are some hearts to use for the Hearts of Love, which I showed you those before, I believe, that people sent to me. And oh, that has the backing on it. Okay. People sent those to me when I was having such a very, very rough time. And so I have some of those. If I get those stitched out, then I will have those to give to other people or send to other people. So here are some additional ones. So I have lots of little hearts, or these also, you know, could be added on to another project, added on to a doll, added on to, I have denim jackets several denim jackets that could use some sprucing up, and so it could be kind of fun to do that. And bless its little heart. Bless her little heart. She's gonna have to be structured creatively, isn't she? So I have enough hearts to do something with. This was something that we did. This was denim as the base. I did these on stream one time and made pins, corsage, you know, embellished pins that you can wear on your jacket or whatever. Hey, Dana. You moved, Dana? Did you move in the building or did you change places entirely? I didn't know you were moving. Do you have the same address, Dana? You can let me know later. Okay, so we have hearts and we have little things. So I'm gonna have a little stack of doodads here. All right, now this also came from the same lady who did the same lady who did those appliques from Thailand. Gave me these, and it's like I don't even know what to do with these. But I could not bear to get rid of them. So you guys are gonna have to give me some ideas, okay? All right, here we go. You ready? Are you ready to see this? Prepare yourself because these are awesome, awesome, awesome. This is silk. It is hand embroidered. I have no idea who hand embroidered them. I mean, they are just stunning, okay? And I have no idea how long these have been on this paper, but so far there's no evidence of rot. I mean, it's like they're like inside this paper frame like that. I have no idea. I mean, you would think that the acid from the paper would have caused it all kinds of issues, but there doesn't seem to even be any discoloring. But it's done on like a China silk. I can't even imagine how this embroidery was accomplished. It looks to be hand done, but I don't know. But there's that one. I know. Look at that. Okay, and here's the other one. There are two of them. Here's the other one. Look at this butterfly and the roses. I mean, I can't even imagine what to do with these. Do you have any ideas? You moved to a different apartment. Okay. Good for you, Dana. You go, girl. You stand up for yourself. I'm sorry you had to move, but I hope you're in a much better apartment. You'd have them framed. I don't think that they're so fragile. I don't think they can stand up to pillows. They are something though, aren't they? Look at can you see the detail in that peacock's tail? She sells them as framed art. Okay, that's probably what they're intended for. I can't, but I mean, it's going to take some really special person who knows how to deal with art like that. Really special person, but I mean, yeah. So those are she'd had them. The person that gave them to me had them for years. Clearly had them for years. I don't think she did them. I think she probably brought them from Thailand, but yeah. Gorgeous pieces. Okay, let me get another handful of stuff here. Oops. Okay, we'll attack this the next layer. Okay, and here we have wax paper. Yes, well, that doesn't really belong in the slow stitching things. Fortunately, right behind me there is a basket of wax paper, so that's a good thing. This, I think, are my quilter's clips. Oh, you have a balcony. Good, Dana. That's great. You recognize them there, Jessica? These are quilter's clips. These are going to go in the sewing room. And these I love for so many things. When you don't want to use pins, like where I use them the most is around binding a project. If I'm going to bind it, you know, like with a bias binding, or fold the back around to the front and stitch it on the front, or vice versa, it doesn't matter. Anyway, sometimes that is the place where I will snag my fingers every time. I will snag my fingers on the pins, and that is just miserable. It is just absolutely miserable. And so I'm like, finally I invested in 100 quilting clips, and boy, that was a good investment. Okay, this is another one of those sewing rolls. Well, let's see what's in this one. It's been a long enough time that I don't even know what's in here, so we're going to find out. Okay, let's just pull all this stuff out and find out what it is. Okay. All right, so we have navy blue thread. Seems like that should go with the sewing supplies, so we'll make a pile for that. These are 12 weight sulky threads, which I've been embroidering with. I really love these they're variegated, and the 12 weight thread is just lovely, and they're cotton, and they are, for delicate stitching, they are absolutely remarkably wonderful. How do you like that for a descriptor? They're smooth, they're variegated, they're delicate, and I never would have thought they're not too heavy to go through the eye of a sewing machine needle if you use the right needle, but they're a little, you have to sew kind of slowly, and actually I like them better to use for hand stitching. And I have a whole bunch of them because the place that I bought them was getting rid of them. This is probably, I probably held these out because of whatever the project I was working on. We're going to stumble across the project here in a minute. Okay, pearl cotton threads. I have some beads, I'm not sure why, and a charm. There's a moon charm, teeny little moon charm, more beads, and more beads. These must have been for putting on the bottom of one of the dolls or something. A needle, pair of threads, pair of scissors, and a little tiny pin cushion. So that's what's in there. And here's another pearl cotton. These are some more threads I have over here. So I have some more pearl cottons, some embroidery thread. So let me do a quick sort out on these. I don't really know why I have these pearl cottons in these colors. I must have had a project in mind at one time. You ever do that where you have a project, you buy all the stuff, and then you don't get on it right away, and then you forget what it was? This is embroidery floss. Okay, and this looks like a little piece of silk. I don't know. It goes in the scrap bucket. That's too pretty to throw away. That's where I get in trouble, because things get too pretty to throw away. You ever have that happen? And a random piece of ribbon. Okay, it's safe to put the scissors, the thimble, and the needles back in here. And I have some other needles that I've unearthed that are hand needles, so I'm going to stick those back in the pouch. Okay? Okay. At that point, I'm going to roll this up and put it with the other sewing pouch. Bye, Joan. Good to see you. Hope you have a great weekend. Hello to Paul. And we're going to be out of here in just a little bit. I'm just going to go through the rest of my basket and just sorting things out from the basket. So if you want to hang in there for just another 5 minutes. Oh, and then there's a friction pin in there. Okay, beads, embroidery floss. This is random stuff. This must have been what I was working out of. So we're going to leave that intact. And this is all of my embroidery flosses, colors. Okay, so here's what we can do. We can take this embroidery floss and we can chuck it in there. Yes, we can. And then there's also ribbon. I'm not sure why I saved it. It has ribbon in the, or wire in the edges. So we're going to yank out the wire if I can get it to pull out, because I don't need wired ribbon that's going to stab my fingers. You can't stitch it on with a wired edge, really. It's good for, it came in a planter for Christmas or something. There we go. It's going to be much more usable to me without the wire in the edges. So let's take this one out too. I ran across a whole bunch of wire-edged ribbon and a bunch of books for making silk flowers with wire-edged ribbon. And I'm like, okay, am I ever going to do this? And I had to be honest with myself and go, you know, I bought them because I thought I would, and I loved owning them. I loved seeing them again. And no, I'm never going to do it. So I donated them and the ribbons. Okay, so there is some ribbon, and that gets to go where the ribbon lives, in the sewing room. Okay, let's take a look at, we're down to where I can see. Okay, this is beading thread, so it's going to live with the beads. And more beading thread to live with the beads. A random nail file for who knows what purpose. So that will go with the sandpaper. Another little pair of scissors. This is all of my pearl cotton. So, or not all of it, but this is pearl cotton. So we're going to take these plain color pearl cottons and this very highly variegated one and put that in there. Okay. Alright, this is more of the size 12 threads, so we're going to put those in there. Some pearl cottons and some needles. Alright. There's my sewing pins, which I have wondered where they were. Pearl cotton, pearl cotton. This pearl cotton, I absolutely love this variegated pearl cotton. Isn't that beautiful? Hey, Starla. I think that is gorgeous colorway. Anyway, I kind of keep that one out by itself because it's so pretty. These are my hand sewing needles in here. Yeah, they need to go someplace else. Okay. We will put those where they should go. And they're going to live with the pins. A pencil sharpener and a pencil. Oh, this was because I needed to mark something on black fabric. Okay. And this, I don't know where this came from, but it is a fabric tape measure wrapped around, what is this wrapped around? Let's find out. I don't even know where this came from. Somebody must have, oh, it's wrapped around this. Tailored Slacks by Campus. I'm not sure where this came from. Somebody gave it to me. But it's a cloth tape measure. And it's kind of cool being on that little holder thing. Okay, so we'll put that back. See, that is the other thing. That's another way you end up with too much stuff, because it's a cool thing, and so you should keep it because somebody gave it to you and because it's just cool. Like, Jiminy. Barb, you gotta stop yourself, girl. You gotta stop yourself. Alright, so there's that. And we have needle nose pliers, which I'm not sure. Oh, that's for pulling the needle through in case the needle gets too heavy or it's too hard to pull through. And a thimble, which I do sew with. And let's take a look. There's another charm. There's a key charm and a moon charm. All right, let's take a look at what I was stitching on, because quite frankly, I've forgotten. So I have my hoops. I'll put those back in there. Oh yeah, this is something you guys and I did. Yeah, we did this. This is another fabric collage that we did, and then I started slow stitching on it. I was having a good time with that. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna work on that some more now that I found it. That was a very good That was a very good thing to stumble onto. And let's see what this one is. Oh, this was the mandala that I think this was a VIP class thing that we did. So this was a mandala and that I drew, and this was all slow stitched on top of it. This was painted with, what did I paint this with? Fabric dye. So it was kind of a loosely painted dyed piece of fabric, and then I started slow stitching on it. That's what I was working on. That's why this basket came to be in the first place. And then that explains why I have this mandala in here, because I was using that as inspiration for this. Okay, some things are making sense to me now. Yes, I like that embroidered mandala too. Okay, those two get to live in there. Let's see what this is. This may be another one of the mandalas. It is. Okay, so that's the same mandala. So that shows you a little bit more of the dyeing process. This one was done with ink tints. Yeah. This one is much brighter. And this one I did with tumble dyes. So I had ink tints, pencils, and tumble dye. Yeah, here it is. Even says it right on the piece. Ink tints blocks. Ink tints blocks, not pencils. And these are tumble dyes. Okay, so I have those things to slow stitch. That's good. That's good. That'll keep me busy. Okay, so I have my projects. And I need to put my fish back in here, my slow stitched Gyotaku fish back in here. I'll find those when I get off the air. I'll put those back in there. I now have my bag of pearl cottons. These are all number 8s. And these were the 12 weight machine threads, and a few random other pearl cottons. And then I have pearl cottons in 2 different weights. This is an 8 3-strand ball. I don't know what it is. They may both be the same weight, but anyway, so I have those. So I have now found what's at the bottom of my basket, and so now I can put my things back together and put the other things where it belongs, those things where they should have been to start with. And then I can actually figure out what I want to really work on, carry around with me and stitch on. It's good to have something like that to work on in the car and do some fun stuff. So I'm gradually getting myself organized in the sewing room, which is great. Feels good. I'm gradually getting moved out of the other house. Also feels good. It's a whole process, you guys. The whole process. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know we didn't do a whole lot that was super creative. Now I've lost my mouse. Oh, here's my fish. I got to put the fish back in the basket. Okay. I've lost the mouse. It's here somewhere. Here it is. And I will be back Monday night at 7 Eastern. And I will be here then. And then I will be gone May 2nd, 5th, and 9th. Okay? You did help. You did help. Tape measure can be used as slow stitched pieces. Yeah, I thought about doing that because it's cloth. I did think of that. And I may do that. I may close my eyes and cut it up a little bit. What brand are the pearl cottons? The variegated blue, Valdani. They're Valdani. Okay, I don't see. Yes, you did help. Thank you for helping me. And I think I inspired you 6 ways from Sunday. That's good. That was pretty much what it was all about today. And you know, one of the things that this has helped me with going through all my own stuff is re-inspiring my stuff, you know? And so that's been a good thing too. All right. With that being said, I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you for hanging out with me. And we'll see where this goes. I'm not sure where it's going yet. But I think I want to do some stitching on it, some hand stitching. So if I'm going to do that, I have to do that before I put the borders, the backing and the borders on, I think. Anyway, we'll find out. I don't know. All right, until I see you next time on Monday, have a really super creative day, weekend, wherever you're watching, and just do it every day, because if you do, it is easy. And I will see you before you know it. Bye for now.